And we begin this newscast with some breaking news coming in from the UK as 2 people have been arrested after the Indian embassy was targeted in London. This is the latest that we are bringing to you. WION has learnt exclusively that the protest march by thousands of British Pakistani participants that turned violent following incident of vandalism, and with regards to the same protests, the Met Police in the UK has arrested 2 people. This is the latest development following the incident after UK's Mayor Sadiq Khan condemned the incident. The latest that we are picking on is that 2 people have been arrested after the Indian High Commission was targeted in London. Remember, this is the second time that the Indian High Commission has been targeted, has been attacked in the last fortnight. It was on the 15th of August that the last attack took place when a group of Indians were celebrating Independence Day outside the Indian High Commission in the UK. And it was on Tuesday that the second protest carried out by the British Pakistani participants turned violent. And as you can see, these are the visuals of that disturbing protest that took place outside the Indian High Commission, where the participants in the protest, the protesters, hurled eggs, plastic bottles, shoes, even broke a window of the Indian High Commission in London. The march was organized by local Kashmiri organizations and called supporters to come to London to protest against the Indian government's move on the abrogation of Article 370 in the Indian state of Jammu and Kashmir. They were protesting against the Indian government's decision after the Article 370 was abrogated and the special status granted to Jammu and Kashmir was removed. Jammu and Kashmir and Ladakh were bifurcated into 2 union territories. For more details, let's quickly go across to my colleague Siddhant Sibbal, who joins me live on this newscast. Siddhant, clearly these 2 arrests that have just been made with regards to the protests go on to convey that UK authorities refuse to be bystanders in this situation.
Well, yes, 2 arrests have been made by the Metropolitan Police over the protests which happened, violent protests which happened, which were done by the Pakistani diaspora and, of course, the Khalistanis in front of the Indian mission in London. This is the second protest which has taken place in just a matter of 1 month. Remember, the last protest took place on 15th of August on India's Independence Day, when a massive crowd did a protest, a violent protest. These were basically Pakistani diaspora and Khalistanis, and 4 arrests were made that time. This time around 2 arrests have been made. But remember, yesterday's arrest and of course the protest happened despite the assurances at the highest level by the British government. Remember, the Indian Prime Minister had spoken to the British Prime Minister Boris Johnson just before they met on the sidelines of the G7, and assurances were given by the British Prime Minister that the safety of the Indian mission will be taken care of, which did not happen yesterday.
Right, Siddhant, you very rightly made a very, very valid point that there were assurances made at the highest level, because on the sidelines of the G20 summit, when Indian Prime Minister met Boris Johnson on the sidelines of the summit, he was given assurances. But yet, is this too little, too late? Because let's not forget, these were extremely organized marches that took place yesterday, wherein the Pakistanis had invited Kashmiris from Pakistan, occupied Kashmir and other regions also to come and participate in the march.
Well, as you just mentioned, too little, too late. That's the point when it comes to the entire protest which took place yesterday. And interestingly, yesterday's protests were announced by the Pakistani Foreign Minister himself from the National Assembly of Pakistan just a few weeks before the protest was to take place. Of course, the Indian mission had taken all the measures, safety measures, and of course we saw the visuals also. The Met Police was also guarding it. But despite all the assurances and all the safety precautions taken by by the Met police. These protesters were able to vandalize the Indian mission, which is a breach of the diplomatic protocol as well, because someone is trying to harm the diplomatic officials and of course the building of the Indian mission, the high-profile building of the Indian mission, the India House.
Right.
And this also shows that the careless nature with which the British authorities have taken the entire incident. Interestingly, the British Foreign Minister spoke in the Parliament just yesterday, speaking on the first protest which took place on India's Independence Day. He said he not only condemned the protest, but he called them deplorable. But just few hours after his statement being made in the British Parliament, we saw the massive protest, and these protesters were able to vandalize the Indian mission.
Right. Siddhant, last but not the least, has there been any sort of reaction coming in from the Indian agencies at this moment as we speak?
Well, no reaction yet from the Indian authorities or from the Ministry of External Affairs, but this is a serious issue, and this is expected to be taken by the Indian External Affairs Ministry with the British High Commission here in Delhi and with the British authorities, the British Foreign Office in London. The last time when the protest took place, India had taken it strongly with the British High Commissioner here in Delhi and at the Foreign Office in London, and
we'll
also, of course, at the highest level,
track all
the
those
Indian Prime
latest
Minister
details. Siddhant, I am sorry to have interjected at this hour. As we speak, the Indian Prime Minister is in Russia. He is in Vladivostok, as we were informing our viewers. He's in the Russian city for a 36-hour visit. Modi began his trip with a visit to a shipbuilding yard with Russian President Vladimir Putin. These are the latest visuals that we are bringing to you for a comprehensive coverage on Indian Prime Minister's visit to Russia for the Eastern Economic Forum. And first, as we informed you, was his visit to the shipbuilding complex. That is the Zvezda shipbuilding complex. And right now, this is an exhibition in the Far East region of Russia that's showcasing the grand plans of Russia for the Far East region. Remember, Russia is trying its level best to open the Far East region of Russia to other countries for investment, and India is all set to be one of the major investors when it comes to the Far East region of Russia. This will also boost India and Russia ties, expected to diversify and further strengthen the bonds of robust bilateral relations. As we all know, the honorary Indian Prime Minister will be also the chief guest at the Eastern Economic Forum. To give you an idea of the Prime Minister's itinerary for the day, on the eve of his departure to Vladivostok, Prime Minister Modi had also stated that he expected his visit to the Far East region of Russia he stated that it was the first by any Indian Prime Minister. So this is the first time that any Indian Prime Minister has visited the Far East region. And these are visuals of the Indian Prime Minister visiting the Zvezda shipbuilding complex on his first day. Just a few hours ago, the Indian Prime Minister had visited Zvezda. Remember, energy building will be important focus of the bilateral meet. The plant is being set up to produce vessels including icebreakers, oil tankers, heavy tonnage ships. And the ships built in the plant in Russia's Far East will be delivering Russian oil and LNG to India as well as other countries in the future. Currently, what you can see is the Indian Prime Minister at the exhibition in Vladivostok, where the Prime Minister is being given a tour of the Far East region that has been showcased at this exhibition. Important to note that the Indian Prime Minister is also all set to hold bilateral talks with the Russian President in just a few hours from now. This is the 20th annual bilateral meet between India and Russia. This visit is also significant as this is the third time that the Indian Prime Minister is meeting his Russian counterpart during the year 2019. They met last in the month of June on the sidelines of the SEO summit in Bishkek and the G20 summit in June. Modi has been invited as the chief guest for the Eastern Economic Forum. The economic forum that is being held from 4th till 6th of September will focus on cooperation and investment. The conference is designed to promote foreign investment in Russia's Far East. India believes that the forum will help boost its Indo-Pacific engagement. It will also help both nations meet their energy needs. Multiple business agreements are expected to be signed during Modi's visit. It includes MOUs for export of coking coal and cooperation in mining sector. A 5-year roadmap will be announced on hydrocarbon cooperation, both in terms of purchase and exploration. What's interesting to note is that the two leaders are also planning to attend a judo championship that is all set to take place tomorrow. And a 6-member Indian team is in Vladivostok or ready to take part in this championship. Modi's day 1 in Vladivostok, that is today, will be concluded with a dinner that will be hosted by the Russian President Vladimir Putin. The two have displayed some great chemistry together. Their camaraderie goes a long way back. Now,